Trump versus due process. From the Central Park Five to Kilmar Garcia. Today we're diving into a story that reveals a disturbing pattern. A president who's repeatedly shown disregard for due process and the rule of law. From the Central Park Five in 1989 to the deportation of a protected man called Kilmar Garcia in 2025. Donald Trump's record is clear, and now the Supreme Court, civil rights attorneys, and everyday Americans are sounding the alarm. We're going to talk about Kilmar Garcia's case. In March of 2025, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a legal Maryland resident and father of 2 U.S. citizen children, was wrongfully deported to El Salvador, despite having legal protection under U.S. immigration law. But here's what makes it even more serious. Garcia wasn't undocumented. He was not a criminal. And this wasn't a gray area case. Garcia was granted something called withholding of removal by an immigration judge. That meant the court recognized that deporting him to El Salvador would likely result in persecution, especially from gangs like Barrio 18, who he had already fled, and this was in 2019. So yes, this protection was issued during Trump's presidency. Despite that, in 2025, the Trump administration turned around and removed Garcia anyway. Now, here's where it gets even more alarming. Garcia was alleged to have gang ties to MS-13, but these claims were never backed by evidence. The accusations stemmed from things like his clothing and a vague confidential informant tip, not criminal behavior. Garcia has never been charged with a crime, not in the United States nor in El Salvador. In fact, the immigration judge who reviewed his case found his testimony credible and ruled that returning him to El Salvador would expose him to persecution. So let's recap. Trump's administration granted him protection in 2019. No criminal record, no gang activity was proven, and still the Trump administration deported him anyway in 2025. Supreme Court's response. Garcia's legal team fought back and took this case all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. And guess what? On April 10th, 2025, the Supreme Court ruled 9-0, unanimous, that the deportation was illegal and that the administration must return him to the U.S. Every single justice, both conservative and liberal, agreed that Garcia's removal violated federal immigration law and due process protections. Now, let that sink in now. The highest court in the country, led by a conservative majority, told Trump, "You broke the law, now bring this man home." And yet, the administration hasn't done it. Officials claim they lack the authority to retrieve him. Senator Chris Van Hollen, who flew to El Salvador himself, was denied access to Garcia, who's now locked in a maximum security prison called CCOT, with no charges, no lawyer access, and no path home. If you want the longer version of this video, join me on my YouTube channel at We the People Fam. Like and follow if you believe that the Constitution still matters, even if it's inconvenient for the powerful. Let's talk about Trump's pattern of bypassing due process. This isn't the first time Trump has rushed to judgment and punished people without proof. Let's go back to 1989. The Central Park Five. 5 minority youths of Black and Latino descent, Yusuf Salam, Antron McCray, Kevin Richardson, Raymond Santana and Corey Wise, were accused of a brutal attack in New York's Central Park. The media called them a wolf pack. Trump took out a full-page ad in 4 newspapers calling for the death penalty before any trial even occurred. Later, DNA evidence cleared all 5. Another man actually confessed, and they were exonerated, and the state had to pay $41 million in settlement for that injustice. But in 2024, Trump once again went on stage during his debate and said they pled guilty and someone died. This is a lie. There was no death, and they were innocent. And now in 2025, they are suing him for defamation because even after courts cleared them, Trump continues to call them guilty in public. Now let's look at the bigger picture. What do these cases have in common? The people involved are poor, Black, or Latino. They were criminalized without evidence, and Trump didn't care about trials, facts, or the Constitution. He wanted them punished, period. In Kilmar Garcia's case, he followed the law. He was screened and granted protection by the judge during Trump's own presidency. And still, when it suited his agenda, Trump tossed due process to the side and deported him, and is now ignoring a 9-0 Supreme Court ruling to fix this. This is not law and order. This is authoritarianism, and we the people need to say so. This isn't about Kilmar Garcia or the Central Park 5. It's about whether this country still believes in due process. Because if the government can ignore the courts, if they can silence facts and rewrite guilt, if it can disappear people into prisons without evidence or a hearing, we all are in danger. Here at We the People fam, we stand for truth. We stand for justice, and we stand with every American's right to their day in court. What do you think about this situation? Talk to me in the comments below.